What's up, everybody? Thanks for joining us on episode 102 of Arkansas Prep Extra, powered by SB Live, alongside Nate Olson. I am Kyle Sutherland, and I imagine just like he and I are, the rest of you are probably snowed in. I know that we got probably about 4 or 5 inches where I'm at. And Nate, I know when you and I did radio on 1037 The Buzz last Friday, we were hearing some reports that it might be as simple as just a light dusting, or we might get up to 6 inches, as I know some have gotten that and even more in certain parts of the state. So definitely going to be an interesting week. Obviously, there will be some where there's already been some postponements and cancellations as there was last week, but that's just our favorite time of the year is all these reschedules, and it starts just 2 weeks into the year.
Yeah. Hopefully this will be the last one. Sometimes we get more than one, and I think it was last year that Northwest Arkansas was affected a couple different times, but in our neck of the woods, just the one time. So it's funny to me that some people were mad. They were like, "Well, we're not going to get any snow. We went and bought these groceries for nothing." They were getting mad at the weather people, and then the snow, the way I understand it, is a little harder to predict than rain and the storms. But it's like, you're not going to eat the groceries now just because there's no snow. You're going to just stocked up on groceries. No big deal. I was hoping they'd be wrong because I don't really want to be stuck inside for 3 days.
No, I
No,
don't either.
yeah.
Well, all we can hope for is and of course, we're recording this on a Monday around lunchtime. So by the time you listen to this, it might already just about be gone if you're listening to it on a Wednesday or Thursday. Hopefully, by that point,
I hope
it's
so.
looking like that it should be well over freezing. But due to all the weather, we're not going to get into a whole lot of games this week. Now, last week we had mentioned that we were going to stick with the same format that we did last year, do a little bit of a mix between 4A through 6A on one episode, and then other episodes do 1A through 3A. So keep it with the big schools, and then the big teams, and then the smaller teams. And so this week we are going to do Class 1A through 3A. So if small school basketball is your forte, then this is your kind of episode. And like I said, we're not going to. Normally, we'll put some of the games from last week and then into this week, but just with, again, there's so many different schedules. We're just going to kind of go as far as just updating you on some of the teams that have really showed out thus far. Now, if you follow this on a regular basis, these will be very familiar to you. Of course, you can also check those out at scorebooklive.com/Arkansas to see where all of the conference standings currently sit. But we'll start in Class 3A with the girls, as we always start at the highest classification that we're talking about. So I'm going to kind of go through some of the top teams, and I'll mention their conference. 3A1 right now, Nate, it all starts with Bergman. They're 27-2. Of course, they went 43-0 a couple of seasons ago, won the 3A state championship. I mean, some of their wins include Mammoth Springs, Salem, Greene County Tech, a 5A school that is in the top 20, I believe it is right now, of our, I don't have them right in front of me, but of our top 25 rankings. Also a win over a quality 5A school in Van Buren. And then also in the 3A2, Salem, the defending state champions. Marley Sellers, who in my opinion is one of the top underrated players in the state of Arkansas, committed to Arkansas Tech, averaging 18 points per game, 7 assists, 5 rebounds, 3 steals, just absolutely filling out the stat sheet once again. But also too in that Region 2 conference, you've got Melbourne that of course had that dynasty a few years ago. Didn't have a down year necessarily last season, but compared to what they have experienced, but are currently going into this week sitting at 14-6 on Salem's heels. So just right there in those first two conferences, Bergman, the champion from 2021-22, and then also Salem in Region 2, last year's state champion, really headlines the Class 3A right now, or at least two of the very two top contenders early here in January.
Unbelievable how much Bergman can win. They only have a couple of losses during that time, and you've got 2 losses this year. I mean, that's and they play more games, than or at this point, and maybe more than other schools too, because they start earlier, some of the smaller schools. But that's really something to win that much. I mean, that gets habitual when you do it that much, and but it's hard. I mean, it's hard every night out. You're going to get the other team's best shot when you come in a gym, and you've won that much. You're somebody's Super Bowl. They're ready to beat you, knock you out. it's not easy to do that. But they've really, both of those programs have built good traditions, and could be on a collision course to play again.
Also, too, in Region 4, are also as well in Region 4, Two Rivers, one to watch there, currently sitting at 15-4. And then also Region 5 is where it gets really, really deep. I know this is one of the deeper conferences in softball that we'll, of course, be talking about here in a couple of months. That's always the conference that you point at as probably the deepest in the classification. In the softball ranks, of course, but also really good in basketball. You've got a Lamar squad sitting at the top at 16-2 that have been in the state finals over the past 2 years. Mayflower at 14-4 have a very deep senior class that probably for the most part has underachieved over the past 2 seasons. Interesting to see. It will be interesting to see what they can do again with a heavy loaded senior class. And then Dover sitting at 14-4. Perryville also with a deep senior class at 17-5. Baptist Prep at 13-3. And then also a very much improved Maumelle Charter. Maumelle Charter coming in this week sits at 16-10. Nate, get this. This was a team that 3 years ago, they had won 23 games in 21 years. So just the fact that they've already won 16 games this year. Now, they're 1-4 in conference. But, again, when you consider 23 games in basically 2 decades and how much improvement that they've made into this year, they've got an outstanding standout freshman in Libby Counts that's already getting D1 looks. I know it's taken at least one D1 visit. Also to their senior leader, Olivia Sword, another one that's been great. Another that will play college basketball as well. But that Region 5 conference, again, Lamar right up there at the top of it, that has been, again, in the state finals over the past 2 seasons. And then you've got all those teams, again, I'll repeat them there just as a refresher: Mayflower, Dover, Perryville, Baptist Prep. Then you factor in a very well-improved Maumelle Charter squad that, hey, Coach Dalkey there, I mean, he's already, just with what he's done this season, I think certainly an early candidate for Coach of the Year with what they have already done, showing the improvements have of the Lady Falcons.
That's a lot of competition. Is that the best region in the state, do you think, right
I would
now?
say that's probably at least as far as win-loss records, because you still have to factor in there's a lot of teams, and as you see with our Power 25 every single week, not always the teams with the best records are going to be up there with the highest. So I think that we're still, even in the smaller classifications, just across the state as a whole, we're still trying to figure out as far as what might be the deepest conference. But as far as from what I have seen, Region 5 is probably up there at the top as of right now.
Yeah, a lot of good programs there. Baptist Prep, great program in the Little Rock area, and I think it's very interesting that Maumelle is now. I've heard some rumblings about more and more people going to that school. So I think you saw ESTEM, you've seen Lisa Academy in the North Little Rock area, have some success in sports and have gained enrollment. Look out for that school there. And then the more kids you get, the better you're going to be in sports. I think right now they've got boys and girls basketball, they've got soccer. Is that what they've got pretty much for the most part now?
Yeah, soccer. I believe they've also got cross country. They've got the Olympic
They don't
sports,
have
I
baseball and
believe.
softball
Yeah,
yet, though.
not base. No, they have softball.
They do.
I'm not 100% sure about baseball, but they do have softball, because I know they've got Audrey Bishop. He's going to be a really top prospect, and they do have a softball team. And like you said, it's getting more and more. I think as the years go along. But again, that's one of the more crazy stats to me. I mean, you're basically 21 game. You're essentially like one game a year. Really, not even one
I
game
didn't
a year.
realize
That's a lot of
it's
winless.
been around that long.
I didn't either. I was thinking, because does that mean that it was around when I was in high school, and I did not
Yeah.
think I knew that Maumelle Charter was a school at that time. I know they had athletic programs, but just crazy to me that, I mean, it's looking like if all goes to plan, in one season they are going to basically have more than they had in over 2 decades combined.
And you've got a Division I prospect there. You've got a softball prospect. And the thing that happens with those schools is the more success and the more, signees you have, other kids are going to go there too. And, in Maumelle, you've got Maumelle High School. You could also go to CAC or another, but that's a bigger city or, suburb now where they can support more than one school. So that's very interesting to hear that.
And then also Bald Knob in Region 6, currently sitting at 19-1. Harding Academy, always a competitive squad at 12-5, followed by Pangburn, who is sitting around 500. In this conference, I really believe that Helena and Episcopal are two. Helena, I got off to that 18-1 start last year. Of course, Episcopal, anytime you have Micah Marsh as your head coach, you've got a chance. His daughter, Lainey Marsh, in their backcourt. They've got a lot of really young talent. Of course, they've also got Sophie Ebel that came back. That's been pretty much injured for the majority of her career. So hopefully she can get through this year healthy. Definite college prospect when she is healthy on the floor. So I look for Helena and Episcopal. Episcopal, especially a team that's gotten off to a slow start through non-conference play and everything. I feel like that those are two teams that you might need to watch on the back end that could heat up possibly at the end. And then in Region 8, Dumas, want to point them out real quick, off to an 18-4 start. Always a quality program. It seems like the boys have kind of gotten more of the success as of recent, but again, off to an 18-4 start this year. Sophomore Kendry Broughton, one to watch. Post player, seems just about every single week. She's put her every single game at least 15, 20, 25 points, whatever it may be, a very consistent point getter there. But the Falk Lady Panthers, want to give them a big shout out. They are currently undefeated at 22-0. Had a really big win over a Jessieville squad the other night. Of course, that's another region that's really deep. When you think about Jessieville, a very young, talented squad there. Peyton Futch leading the way, the sophomore that won Underclassman of the Year as a freshman last season. And also Centerpoint, who was really good over the last couple of years, had in 2020-21, had a state championship appearance that got runner-up. So they are back on after a little bit of a down year last year. Centerpoint has done much better, but right there in Region 7, want to go back to them. The Falk Lady Panthers, again, with a 61-45 win over Jessieville to remain undefeated. Falk plays a really unique style, Nate. They rotate 5 in, 5 out about every 90 seconds, so very, very fast style of play. Coach Williams feels that he knows that he's got about 10 to 12 who can score, but Nayla Zatrain has really been their top player this year and really came on last season. She's averaging a double-double, 14 points, 11 rebounds, and also Kinley Smith nearly averaging a double-double, the sophomore, 9.6 points and 10.2 rebounds per game. So Falk was one of those last year that you really felt was coming on and was going to be extremely improved with how deep they were. They lost 2 that signed with a college last year, both signed with South Ark. They're 2 seniors, and then had pretty much just about everybody coming back. But a definite team here, I think, that can challenge Salem and Bergman there for the top of the 3A.
And going back to Sophie Ebel, you said Ebel from Episcopal.
Mm-hmm.
Heard from her mom, 2 surgeries she's had this year, flying high, 2 big games last week, and has committed to Hendrix College to play basketball.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. And like you said, I mean, over the past 2 seasons, just couldn't catch a break. We see that. Honestly, I feel like we see that a little bit too much when you think about all the sports that we cover. And, of course, every single Cam Van Zant from Farmington, perfect example of that, over the past couple of seasons, basically been out his junior and senior year. So we see that a lot. And hopefully Sophie can continue to play her senior year and everything can keep going well for her. And again, also for Episcopal, that they can possibly get a turnaround and get things rolling there in the second half of the season. So down to Class 2A, man, Nate, it's all about the defending 2A state champions there out of Region 2, the Mount Vernon Enola Lady Warhawks, almost said Lady War Eagles, not talking about Rogers Heritage. Their win streak dating back to last year's 2A state title run, I think it's over 30 now. It's around like 31, 32 games. Now, I want to talk about Mansfield here in a second. That was the team that they beat in the semifinals last year to get to the state championship round. But also in the 2A2, Quitman as a team that's been a pleasant surprise, currently sitting at 17-3. Now, I was told by Coach Hooten earlier this year, actually right around the beginning of the season, he had mentioned to me that there were some concerns over the lack of maturity, basketball IQ, the absence of leadership. I mean, he did not mince words. That's exactly what he told me. And his girls have shown that they are up for the challenge, have been one of the top teams in Class 2A. Also, ICC, Izzard County Consolidated, sitting at 14-6 after getting runner-up in the George Kell Classic, falling to Mammoth Spring. At number 3, Riverside, another quality team that had one of probably in that matchup last year in the quarterfinals, with Mount Vernon and Nola. That was one of the premier matchups of the year. They are out to another roll there in the 2A3. Also, Earl, this is another one of those super deep conferences that's just going to beat up on each other, and possibly you could see one of them make a deep run that you might not have expected in the state tournament. Earl is at 13-8. Buffalo Island Central's at 10-10. EPC at 9-8. Even Marmaduke sitting at 11-13, but they're 2-7 in conference play. I really think that those are the case once you get past Riverside. That's some teams right there that you really, when you talk about, again, just the depth of that entire Northeast Arkansas, Region 3 in particular, again, Riverside, Earl, BIC, EPC, and Marmaduke. I feel like, again, Nate, that is possibly a conference that maybe Riverside and one or two others that you could see come out possibly strong and maybe challenge Mount Vernon and Ola when it's all said and done.
Yes, and it was Marmaduke that's got a couple of accolades this week, right? For a couple of the players.
That was Mammoth Spring. Mammoth Spring was now. Are you talking about hitting like 1,000 career points and all that stuff?
Yeah,
that was Mammoth Spring.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was thinking for some reason Marmaduke. Okay. Well, Mount Vernon and Nola, I mean, to be concerned with the maturity and win that many games, that he must do a pretty good job of coaching.
Or no, that was Quitman. Because Mount Vernon and Nola, they brought back plenty. They brought back their top 8 players. No, Quitman had. That's what Coach Hooten had said to me previously to the season was there. Basically just your typical things that you have within a young team, inexperience and somebody to step up in that leadership role. But they certainly have. And I think that Mount Vernon and Nola was especially the one that people probably expected to run in this conference, really to run Class 2A as they have done right now. But Quitman's definitely been one of those. I guess you could call him a surprise. You knew the potential was there. It was just really about proving it, and that's what they've done.
Mount Vernon and Nola, the overwhelming favorite to win.
I would say right now, but you also, if you have anything to mention there, I'll plead my case of why I think that they could possibly be challenged. But I mean, yes, right now they still are the heavy favorite.
Yeah, well, that's an impressive win streak. We just talked earlier about winning and how tough that is. And I don't know if you're the staff there, if you want to maybe lose one before you get into the tournament. Sometimes when you talk about men's NCAA college basketball, people get a little worried about win streaks going into the tournament. Sometimes you think about that. Would you want to lose one before you go in? There's different schools of thought on that. It sounds like with these ladies, they just want to go run the table, win everything.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing about MVE. Not only do they have just an incredible starting 5, they've got 3 or 4 more that could probably start at a lot of other schools, and that's where they get you now. Riverside's another program with a lot of depth. I mean, I think you could go down the line. You could probably point at a bunch of different ones, but see when you're talking about possibly maybe one of the better starting 5s, or at least when you think of a trio with that, and I'm talking about Mansfield here, another undefeated squad. Allison Edwards, that's one of the better multi-sport athletes in Arkansas. Of course, Kinsley Ward, that is I believe I can't remember if she's committed or not. I believe that she actually did commit to Crowley's Ridge College. And then you've also got her sister, that's a sophomore phenom, Kaylee Ward, who is offers from Arkansas, Mississippi State. Now, obviously, when you think about MVE, not only do they have great guard play, but you think about Desi McCarty down there in the paint with that game that she had in the state finals last year, just one of the more dominant players regardless of classification. Now, as I mentioned a little earlier, MVE did beat Mansfield in the semifinals last year by 20 points. But when you think of just in terms of getting it to the paint, scoring the baskets down low there, I think that Mansfield certainly is the one that's going to keep up with Desi McCarty, because you've got her that's sitting at 6 foot plus, and then Kaylee Ward that's 6'2", 6'3". So size-wise, that's probably your best bet there. I think really the question is, it's not that there aren't enough talented teams to compete with MVE. I was about to say Riverside because I was thinking about them being one of the more deeper teams. I think it's really just what it's going to come down to. Does another 2A team have what MVE has when it's all said and done, especially once you get deep into February, on into early March? Does another team have the bench to compete with an MVE is the biggest question that I have.
Mm-hmm. With Mansfield, a lot of the volleyball players I know Edwards is a great volleyball. Most of the
Yes.
volleyball team play basketball because now you're seeing that a lot of kids are choosing one or another, so they're all playing together, moving on
There
to
was
basketball.
well, I think more. Of course, the Ward actually a lot of them play softball because I think both of the Ward sisters played volleyball. Both of them play softball. So at a 2A school, you're still at that level
Got
to
to play
where you
everything.
play just about all. You play three or four different ones.
Maybe one of the more underrated women's athletic programs in the state, regardless of
I
class.
would say so because look, they just won 4 in a row state championships in volleyball. And last year they made a deep run in basketball. Last year they went to the state finals in softball, lost by a run to Riverside, and they've got a really good chance of making a deep run again. They've certainly got their
And
case.
did they win the softball finals like 2 years ago, or they were in that softball final?
They lost on a walk off to Tuckerman. Sorry,
Yeah,
that was McKaylee
I knew
Gibbs'
they were
freshman
there.
year.
I mean, that's
Yeah.
that's that's pretty impressive to especially with 2A where it's the same cast of characters that are moving on to sports. Says a lot about the coaching, the culture there. Mansfield's always, had some good football teams here and there too. I think it's just a good kind of sports town over there in the River Valley.
Mansfield football, just like you said. I mean, they surprised everybody and went to the semifinals. Nobody
Yeah,
saw that
yeah,
coming this year. So,
yeah.
yeah, it is definitely that's a great point. It's a great time to be in Mansfield, Mansfield Tiger, and could very well be for the basketball team this year. I know
Yeah.
the boys are actually doing. They're not quite as maybe up to par that the girls are competing as far as being a contender, but and hey, another good positive about that town, they get to host the 2A tournament, so 2A
Hmm.
state tournament.
Yeah.
So got
Yep.
even more good news this week. And then also Acorn. This is where we get to the point in the year where we start saying towns that you could enunciate in different ways. Then you have them Acorn at 21-5, and then Parker's Chapel sitting at 14-4, and then of course Parker's Chapel from Region 8, along with Gurdon sitting at 11-4. But the one surprise team, Nate, that I like out of Region 6, Barton sitting at 17-3. Barton, obviously known as a football school historically,
Hmm.
but they've got one of the more dominant players. Now, we heard about Demaya Wilson last year when she was a freshman and she broke records, putting up 55 in a game, 30 plus. Well, she is averaging 37. I don't care, Nate. I don't care if you're in 2A, 1A, what kind of competition you're playing against. 37 points per game is just not fair.
Yeah, no.
37 points, 8 rebounds, 3 steals, 4 assists. And this is a kid. I had a chance to interview her a little bit at media days back in October. She does not say a lot. She's just maybe going to say about 2 or 3 different words. She just doesn't talk a whole lot. She does all of her talking on the court, and it is very obvious with that. I mean, she is what they call an instant bucket anytime that she has the ball in her hands. And you really got to give it to Coach Ryan Cowart with what he's doing currently with the Lady Bears. As I mentioned last week on the podcast, that I think that he is one of the state's best coaches that that a lot of people don't think about sometimes.
Hmm.
Just a great track record, and he's doing some great things with the Lady Bears right now.
That's my kind of player. You just let your play do the talking. And if you're averaging 37 in 2A, you're going to average at least 25 or 24 in 6A. I mean, you're playing that good. I mean, we've seen that over the years with guys like Kai Madden and people like that are playing at EPC. You could stick them over at Bryant, North Little Rock, Fayetteville. She can play. I mean, if you're doing that, you can play. And I like some of those small school stars, and you know that if you stuck her in a bigger school, she'd still get her points. And maybe it wouldn't be 37, but you can score, you can score. So yeah, maybe she'll be able to push them into a deep run when you're scoring like that.
And then down in Class 1A, Kingston, the girls there, they made a deep run in the state tournament a couple of years ago. They currently are sitting at 17-5, right in front of Jasper, who lost a good bit from last year, but still up against a tough schedule. They are hanging in there at 19-8. I look for them to make a deep run here now with conference play fully underway. And then also in Region 2, Norfolk sitting at 20-2, one of the state's premier teams over the past 3, 4, 5 years, especially. Also Concord, that was one that we expected to take big strides. they have 21-4 sitting currently, and also too keep an eye on Rural Special right now, just at 9-7. But I still think that they have plenty left in the tank. But right now, so 1A, Nate, I meant to preface with this. It's pretty much been Norfolk and Mammoth Spring over the past couple of years. Now, that's the two teams that have played in the last two state finals. Norfolk won it in 22. Of course, Mammoth got revenge last year, won their first in state history. But I'll go ahead and mention this, and we'll mention a couple of other teams here. But to me, I mean, Class 1A, it's pretty much Mammoth Spring right now, and not even close. They're currently sitting at 24-4. They had, you mentioned a second ago,
I was
we
going to
had
say, now mention them.
three players hit big time career accolade, career milestones last week. So Bryn Washam, who's been their top dog pretty much the last three seasons, averaging 18 points per game, connecting on 45% of her shots from three-point range, went over 2,000 points. And then also Tay Davis, who is averaging 12 points per game right now, and Adriana Corbett each went over 1,000 points. And you look at some of their losses, they've lost to Mount Vernon and Nolan, Nettleton, Bergman, Farmington. I mean, they're playing 5A, really good 5A schools. Again, Farmington, who we have number 2 in our rankings right now. Bergman, that we've already talked about a lot. And this is a 1A school that is playing the best of the best competition. And I mean, I just talked about one player over 2,000, two over 1,000. When they end up graduating this 2024 class, I mean, that's probably going to be about 5,000 plus points of production they're losing. So, again, this is a team that has a chance to repeat as state champions, one of the more successful classes really over the past couple of seasons. And again, to me, Nate, right now, it's just pretty much Mammoth Spring and everybody else in Class 1A.
I can't recall in 25 years of being here more than that much scoring in one class. I mean, on one team. That's a lot.
Yeah.
Think about it. I mean, there's a lot of programs that don't have 1,000-point score in there, and even some of the good teams, maybe one. That's it. I mean, do you agree with that? I don't.
I was actually, when I saw that Bryn hit 2,000, and I think Tay was the next one that hit 1,000. It's like, wow, that's pretty impressive. But I'm not surprised. It's a team that I followed over the past couple of years, and I know how successful they've been. But then I saw another one hit 1K. I don't believe that I certainly haven't seen that many hit those kind of career. I've seen a few hit 1,000 within a week or two of each other, which is great in its own right. But to hit 2,000 and then another two hit 1,000, basically 4,000 combined points in a 6-7 day span, I've never seen that.
That's an opposing coach's nightmare, because that means all three can fill it up. So who do you guard? I mean, many times if you've got a Washam, for example, with 2,000, you're going to double, triple team her, and you're going to hope that somebody else beats you. Well, with those other two that can score 1,000, you're not going to be able to double team anyone. I mean, I think, you maybe zone against them, but man, that's 3 legitimate scores on a team in 1A. I mean, no wonder they're so good.
Yeah, and it doesn't stop with them. It pretty much just starts there. And they've just been a machine, really, again, over the past few. You knew that when they got there with a heavy sophomore loaded class. I know that they had a girl named Sarah Crow that graduated last year that was a big part of that as well. And then they had some in that 2022 class that were a big key. But when you found out that, hey, this is a very sophomore heavy team, the year that they went and lost to Norfolk, you had a feeling that this was going to be a team that really could create some history. And they have certainly done that, and they're continuing to do so. Also in Region 3, Marktree off to a really good start. Expected that to probably happen. They're at 17-3. Region 4, Wonderview's 15-5, and Sacred Heart also at 15-5. Region 7, a Kirby squad that is always two of these teams out of Region 7 are ones that I'm really looking to see if they can take that next step. Kirby, look, they've had plenty of times over the past, within recent history, that they've shown that they can make deep tournament runs, but I really want to see something from this Bradley squad. They made the state tournament a couple of years ago, got bounced in the first round, did not make it out of regionals last year, but they're very, very talented, extremely interested to see where they do end up, to see if they can actually go a little bit further. Also, Taylor out of that Region 7 conference, 16-6 currently after a quarterfinal appearance a year ago. And then they ended up losing to eventual state champion Mammoth Springs. So some talent there in South Arkansas that also includes Emerson. They are at 18-4 right now. Talked to their coach a good bit last year, and they were a really good shooting team last year. You knew that they were going to have some great shooters coming back in Savannah Powell, Sydney Tennell. Sydney Tennell's actually been hurt some this year and is kind of starting to get her groove back. But Savannah's averaging 14 points per game, 6.5 assists, 5 rebounds. But also, too, Layla Tell. Brayley Phillips is another one that's been a big-time contributor, 12 points per game. But Layla Tell, a transfer from Haynesville, Louisiana, has been big for them, averaging a double-double, 16 points, 11 rebounds. So it just back to that size, how important size is in the smaller classes. That's what Layla Tell has really provided for Emerson. So, Nate, we always hear about, and rightfully so, those teams up north, because that's really have been the teams over in recent memory that have won the state championships. When you think about the rural specials, and again, the Mammoth Springs and the North Forks. But between Taylor and Emerson and possibly even Kirby and Bradley, we've got some pretty good stuff going on down in South Arkansas as well.
Yeah. Another definitive favorite, but some teams that could possibly make some runs.
Then down in Class 3A for the boys, switching over to that side, Region 1, Elkins is at 17-1, but also, too, keep an eye on Bergman. They made it to the finals last year. Of course, they lost their top shooter in Walker Patton to graduation, but still plenty of weapons. I think they can make a run here down the stretch. Rivercrest out of Region 3, I had a lot of really high hopes for this team after they made their deep tournament run last year with a very, very young team. You look at Jaden Young, who came in and just out of nowhere put up 38 points in the state tournament game. Also, Hackett in Region 4 making some noise, currently sitting at 14-3. But look out for Boonville at 9-4. They've got Dax Goff, the star of the football team that led them to the state, or really the state championship back last month. And he's going to, of course, play baseball. He's a Harding football commit, but also suiting up for basketball this year, expecting to be a big-time player in the post. CAC in Region 5, I love the Mustangs there, currently sitting at 11-3. They had been waiting on, just kind of like with Rivercrest, the position that they were in. We're waiting on some of their guys to come from football after they made it to the quarterfinals in Class 4A. And CAC, again, sitting at 11-3, really getting their groove out. They have their full team together. But, Nate, just kind of going through here, Regions 1 through 5. You know, Elkins, they've had a couple of years there. I know in a couple of years, actually, as far as 2022, as far back as 2022, had a really good run. And then this year looking to do the same. Again, off to a 17-1 start. Some probably saw that coming, maybe not many outside of Northwest Arkansas. But I really like Rivercrest had that great season in Class 4A and football, making it to the 4A state finals. CAC, the most improved team in Class 4A, going from 2 wins in both 2021 and 2022 to make it to the quarterfinals. I expect both Rivercrest and CAC to have big seasons in Class 3A for basketball after making big runs in football just a couple of months ago.
How many football players on the Elkins basketball team, or the key players?
Elkins, that I'm not 100% sure. I know Rivercrest and CAC both are flooded with them.
Yeah. Elkins made the meteoric rise in football. Deshaun Chairs was one of the big reasons why there. I wondered if he played basketball. I want to say he does play basketball, but from last year, but I can't remember that or not. But we'll look into that and talk about it. But definitely, you know, Elkins school on the rise in Northwest Arkansas. I remember, you know, when I came there in '98, Elkins and Pea Ridge and even Farmington in Greenland, you know, those schools were not very big, didn't have that great of facilities. Now, you know, they've all got great gyms and football stadiums. Gravitz in there, Gentry, you know, that pretty amazing that, you know, that Elkins now is, you know, 4A in football, 3A in basketball, and has some fantastic talent in those hallways.
Then looking into Region 6, I love this Riverview team currently sitting at 14-1. You've got the trio of Tristan and Tucker Cunningham, and then along with Tadrian Baker, who Tadrian's just been on another level over the past few games, averaging over 20 points. So you had a feeling with those three back that this could be possibly a special season. Also, Bald Knob, both the Bald Knob boys and girls doing really well. The boys sitting at 16-3. Haskell Harmony Grove in Region 7. I think that's a team that's done much better than probably a lot expected. They lost their big man that was 6'2", Blake. Oh, gosh. I'm forgetting my first name of the year. His name, Blake, he was a post player that could also play on. He's kind of, in a way, like a Terrion Burgess. I'm not comparing the talents. I'm just saying he was one of those that obviously at 6'9", 6'10", was really good in the paint and then also could shoot along the perimeter as well. And that's what you see with a Terrion Burgess. But Haskell Harmony Grove doing really well. And then also Jessieville, who also lost a great player in its own, and Noah Futch that was good for 25. His sister, of course, Peyton, that we were talking about a second ago, he graduated and was good for about 25 or 30 a game last year, what it seemed like. And then also in Region 8, last year or a couple of years ago, Dumas and McGee were right there neck and neck for that spot, that top spot there in Region 8, and both made deep state tournament runs. McGee went to the Final Four that year. Dumas made it to the finals. Well, right now, Dumas is at 17-4, McGee at 16-3. And, you know, last year, Nate, Dumas, they've, over the past couple of years, they've had the Reddick brothers. And for a while, it was Tommy and Mike. Or Mike is the oldest. He graduated last year, is now at UAM. And then Tommy, who's a senior this year, and then Billy, that I believe is a junior this season. So there's still two of them left, and both are still top contributors. But, you know, senior Raylan Spratt has also been another one that's really been in that mix, and also a really good football player as well. And he's averaging 18 points per game this year. So kind of stepped up into that senior leadership role along with Tommy Reddick. So, you know, you got to really give it to now McGee. Of course, they have a new coach this year, and then also in Dumas, you really have to give it up to Larry Harris for the consistency that he has been able to sustain there with the Dumas Bobcats. Of course, like I said, they were in the state finals where they lost to Osceola in 2022 and then made a semifinal run last year.
Right. Yeah, I was going to ask you. I thought there were two Reddicks left. That's
Yeah.
amazing basketball.
All great students as well. I always want to point that out. Exceptional
Yeah.
athletes. All three of them are great students as well.
Yeah, that's good to hear.
Then down to Class 2A. Also, speaking of really quality jobs at a program, really want to give it up to Cody Edgar. Done a phenomenal job there at Cedar Ridge, who's leading Region 2 right now at 18-5. They already have as many wins as they had last season. That, of course, last year they went on that run to the quarterfinals where they lost to Earl by 2 points in the state tournament. And then 2 years ago, they won only 5 games. Also, Sloan Hendricks at 21-7. And then defending state runner-up Marshall at 14-5. So the top of the 2A2 looking really, really good right now. And then, as it is with the girls, in 2A3, it is complete madness. You've got Bay at 18-11. Then you've got a Riverside team that is 20-6. East Poinsett County at 10-6. But also Earl. And these are the top 4 teams in the conference. Earl's just at 4-7 right now. But keep in mind, Earl also had that team that started off not so great last year and then made a deep run into the Final Four. So definitely don't sleep on them. You can't really sleep on any team in the 2A3 with, again, both boys or girls until it's all said and done. So we'll focus on these here for a second, Nate. I mean, I think that, again, with the 2A3, you just never know what's going to happen. Anything can. Some of the teams that we expect. EPC, I knew would be a very well improved team. I'm not shocked to see that they are close to the top as well. I think probably out of those teams, Bay, Riverside, EPC, and Earl. I didn't expect Riverside to be at this point. I definitely thought the girls, would maybe have a little bit better season than the boys did. But very impressed with what Cedar Ridge. I talked about how Coach Larry Harris has been able to sustain that success at Dumas. Well, Cedar Ridge, they're really just getting that success going, and it's been clear the improvement that they've made pretty much year by year.
Yeah, that's good for them, and that sounds like another group that could be competitive. That the 2A boys.
Also, too, you cannot talk about 2A without talking about Region 5 because they probably got right now. I think that England maybe showed with their win. So England beat Cutter Morning Star by 2 points the other night. That avenged a loss from December 1st that Cutter won that game. So Trent Morgan leaves for a year last season, goes to Russellville, and then comes back. This is a guy that was an assistant on the 2015 team that won a state championship, then was a head coach on the 2020 squad. This was, I think that actually 2A game, if I'm not mistaken, that was one of the last ones that was actually able to be played before everything got shut down for
Oh
COVID.
yeah.
So, Coach Morgan really helped build a state championship caliber program as an assistant, continued that into being a head coach, then again spends 1 year at Russellville, comes right back, and England is just back to clicking on all cylinders.
That's something that he left and came back.
Yeah. Yeah, came back. Yeah, went for a year. Of course, Russellville, both the boys and the girls got new coaches, really for the third time
Yeah.
in as many years. So he comes back, and then last night on what was it, Saturday night, Jaquan Mays hit the winning shot that put England, that basically secured the win. Now, of course, I know that we don't do the class by class rankings, but just about anywhere that you look, or at least they are. I don't want to say just about anywhere that you look, but they are ranked as high as the number one team in the classification. You look at Trent Arnold averaging 14 points per game, Aiden Scribner. This is a really young team. I think they've only got maybe one or two seniors, if that. So they haven't gone anywhere for a while. They're not going to for quite some time. Landon Woods with 12 points per game, and then Jaquan Mays that I just mentioned at 10 points per game. So really great job there, of course, by Coach Morgan, basically just continuing to do what he helped build while he was gone for a way, comes back and then comes to England, returns and does what he continued to do there before. Also Bigelow, don't count them out. You can't count them out. They're sitting at 12-1. They are the defending 2A state champions. Of course, a lot of guys on this team just won a 2A state football championship last month, and they also are going to be looking to do the same in baseball. So this 2024 class looking to close it out with a bang. But then you also can't forget about Cutter Morning Star. Definitely one of the more improved teams in Class 2A, sitting at 18-3. Coach Brickle there done a really good job. This is a team that didn't even make it to the state tournament last year, and they've become, at least in the regular season, one of the top teams in the classification. Also, Mariana and Barton. Mariana, of course, Vernon Wilson came there last season after winning a state championship with Osceola. They were just shy of making it to the state tournament, but are trying to turn things around there. They're sitting at 10-5. And then a surprising Barton squad sitting at 11-2 in the 2A6. So last but not least, heading down to Class 1A and the 1A1 East, you've got Kingston sitting at 9-1, and the 1A1 West gets really interesting, Nate, because kind of like on the girls' side in Class 1A over the past couple of seasons, it's been Norfolk and Mammoth Spring. That's really how it's been. That's just really, as far as state title contending teams, there's really been about two or three over the past couple of seasons that we've seen. Of course, County Line, they won the state championship undefeated at 45-0 last year. Bradley won it the year before. Of course, when they won it with that controversial ending against County Line, and then this year, even though County Line graduated a lot, but New School graduated everybody as well. So you were kind of not really sure what you were going to get with either one of these two teams. Talking about County Line and New School, of course, but the New School has really been off to the hot start out of them all in that conference, sitting at 22-3. But Ozark Catholic has been really good as well, sitting at 22-5. But also to Concord, I really like them sitting out of Region 2. They're at 19-5. Had a really good season last year. A little bit of Jekyll and Hyde, but have been pretty solid overall. Again, just coming up on 20 wins. But I think probably the biggest surprise there, Nate, not surprise so much as because you knew County Line was going to have probably some growing pains with all that they lost and that they were going to have to replace. But I think probably the biggest one there is the New School having to replace all 5 starters. Look, David Farrell, he's done it for a long time, was at West Fork for a while and then came to New School. But he's got the Cougars really rolling there with a completely new look team.
One of the better basketball coaches around. You know, we talk a lot. Wes Swift maybe being the best coach, all classes. Farrell is in that mix. A guy that's done it and been there for decades and at different places, and doesn't surprise me that he's winning at the new school.
And then Mark Tree, the defending 1A runner-up. I don't know that anybody could have more of a chip on their shoulder as much as that school does, especially the way they basically lost the state championship on a last-second bucket last year. You know, just kind of the way that it's one of the great and not great things about sports, you know, that somebody has to be on the losing end of something like that. And you know that this squad is definitely looking to continue what they had done last year and then take it even a step further. Also, Mammoth Spring in Region 3 sitting at 19-6. Scranton in Region 4 leads at 22-6, followed by Wonderview at 16-7. The Brinkley Tigers at 15-2, currently leading Region 5. And then all the way down to Region 8, Nevada, 16-6. And then in 7, the Region 7, Bradley at 19-1. Just talked about them a second ago, followed by Kirby at 21-6. And then Lafayette County at 11-6. I want to focus real quick here before we close things out, Nate, with Bradley. We've mentioned on the last couple of on a few different episodes on the last few seasons, both the boys and girls for Bradley are coached by Benny Harris. That is, I mean, one of the best ambassadors for Arkansas basketball that you can think of. Yeah. He's been doing it for nearly 50 years. This is his 47th year of coaching. And we've talked about consistency. I've mentioned consistency and sustainability a couple of times on this episode. With what he has been able, he started at Foreman, but has spent most of his career at Bradley. I believe he actually maybe had been at Falk for a short time as well. Or maybe it was Falk and then Foreman.
A trio of metropolises.
Basically, yes, down there, just a trio of small town metropolises down there in the Texarkana area. But Benny Harris, just one of the greatest human beings, a joy to visit with, to watch his teams play. Once again, has both the Bradley girls and boys playing at a high level, nearly a half century into his coaching career.
Well, you know, that's what makes high school sports and just education in general, you know, special, because that guy has touched a lot of people, a lot of kids that are now, you know, adults that are you know, older than me. You know, I'm almost 50 years old, and he's coached people that are older than me. And no doubt, you know, when they went to the tournament championship a couple years ago, there was lots of alumni there to support him. That's just special that somebody has wanted to coach basketball, and not just boys or girls, but both. And those schools, you know, that you mentioned, they all have their challenges. You know, small schools and budgets and socioeconomic backgrounds, and that's a guy that's able to conquer all that and shape a lot of people to where when they leave his basketball program, not only have they won basketball games, but they're ready to take on life.
And also, be sure, of course, you can listen to this or watch this episode on YouTube, as some of you are watching right now, but you can check it out on Spotify as well. We're working to get on all platforms as far as Apple, Stitcher, all of those. We'll kind of keep you updated as that goes along. But for now, you can check it out on Spotify. You can also go to scorebooklive.com/Arkansas. Check out our Athlete of the Week, Team of the Week, and then, of course, the top 25 rankings that we typically release either Monday or at least by Tuesday of each week. But, Nate, I guess as this week goes along, we'll kind of have updates on the site as far as list on everything like postponement and cancellation-wise.
Yeah, we'll be keeping up with it. And I also want to apologize if you heard any noise. I'm not at a nightclub or restaurant or anything. That's just my family that is in the adjacent room. Everybody's here. We've got mom and 2 kids and mother-in-law here. So they've been pretty quiet, but I've heard a little bit of rustling. They're eating lunch right now. So typically I'm here alone, and sound is not a problem other than maybe the dog barking here and there. But yeah, if you heard that, that's we're all home stuck with the weather. So
they actually did a good job. I didn't Yeah, I
What's
didn't
that?
hear a word. They did a
Okay, well,
pretty good
good,
job of
good,
staying
good,
quiet. So
good. They
I never
they've
heard a
been
thing.
quiet for the most part, but they're out in the living room, and I'm here in my study here, and with the door shut. And no, typically I'm just out in the living room because nobody's here. So, anyway, but yeah, everybody be safe. We'll be back to regular schedule again, and a lot of basketball games will be postponed. I think when you hear and see this, maybe after Tuesday, but I think most of the slate on Tuesday night will be canceled. I would be
I
very
would think
surprised
so. Yeah.
if there's many games played, and we've already heard schools closed in Bryant, Fort Smith. A lot of if schools closed, games will be off as well. So we'll keep you updated. The big thing on that, I know you'll want to know, is when those games will be played, and we will try to keep you updated on that with a running list of when those games will be played later on.
Yeah, and then I'll be reposting and posting as many as I see on Twitter/X. You can follow me at K_Sutherland. That's Suthar for all those updates. But other than that, that will do it for episode 102 of Arkansas Prep Extra. You can catch us again on Spotify and YouTube. But other than that, for all of us here at SB Live, I'm Kyle Sutherland. We will catch you next week.